Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, which is brought to you by sharedserviceslink in association with statementmatching.com. Today we're looking at prevention versus recovery, in particular how to stop money slipping through the cracks. Today I am very pleased to be presenting as my guest speakers, Monty Kamenetsky, who is the Accounts Payable Controller at B&H Photo Video, and Dan Kimpton, who is Director at statementmatching.com. My name is Susie West, I'm the CEO at Shared Services Link, and I'm your host for today. As always, you have a key role to play, which is to make sure that you get your questions answered during this next 60 minutes. So post those questions to me, and I will put those questions to Monty and Dan in the last 10 minutes of this webinar. Do make sure that you stick around for those questions to be answered. Let's have a look at the agenda for today. I'll be touching on context, and we'll then have a couple of poll questions, and then I'll be handing over to Monty, who's going to be walking us through his case study experience. And then we're going to be handing off to Dan, who's going to be giving us a bit more of an insight into the statementmatching.com technology, and then we'll take your Q&A. So having a look at context for a moment, many shared services organizations, however sophisticated they are, mature, and kind of technologically oriented they are, they still struggle, especially when they kind of the higher volume of invoices, a higher volume of suppliers that they have, they still struggle with statement matching and making sure that internal controls are in place when it comes to matching. So errors, the kind of errors that can appear when we're matching statements is overall underpayments, mispostings, potential duplicates slipping through your systems and processes that go unseen. And more often than not, this is not necessarily your fault. It's a kind of a fault that may have been initiated from the supplier side. So it can have a huge impact on your organization and certainly your kind of financial operations. So reconciling supplier statements is something to get right, and often it's the kind of the last area of financial process excellence that a lot of shared services organizations look at. It's overlooked, it's neglected, and it really shouldn't be. It's an area which we'll find out is actually relatively straightforward if you're working with the right kind of solution to fix, and it can certainly help you be a higher performing shared services organization. So just before we go into our story, let's ask a couple of poll questions coming up on your screen now. Let's start with the first poll question. So that should be on your screen now. How would you rate your current processes in accounts payable today? Please tick the box most appropriate to you. Not automated, we're quite manual, reliant on paper, it's very spreadsheet heavy today. Somewhat automated, but still with lots of paper and a good amount of spreadsheets. Or perhaps you're highly automated. You mostly use AP and purchase-to-pay automation tools. We do like to try and get participation up somewhere between 60–70%. We're currently on about 57% of you responding. So if you haven't already responded, please do so. Tell us a little bit about how you would rate your current AP processes today. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. So coming up on the screen now, thank you. We were at 78% of you responding to that, so that's great news. Let's have a look at the levels of sophistication represented on this webinar today. So we have the majority of you, 55% of you, saying that you're somewhat automated, but still with lots of paper and a good amount of spreadsheets. And 41% of you saying highly automated, and mostly use AP and P2P automation tools. So really, we've got 97% of you that actually have some level of automation in place. And going back to kind of the context that I was talking about at the top of this webinar, I think this is probably not a surprise at all. We we do find that this generally does seem to be the kind of one of the last areas within finance process excellence that shared services organizations tend to examine. Let's now go to our second poll. So coming up on your screen now, tell us a little bit about the number of invoices that you process each year. Is it less than 100,000, 100 to 200,000, 200 to 500,000, 500,000 to 1 million, or is it more than 1 million invoices that you process each year? So if you can let us know the answer to that, and we'll be closing the poll. We're at about 58% of you responding. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. We were at 66% of you responding there. Let's have a look, see what kind of size of organizations we have represented on the webinar today. So an interesting mix. A third of you actually have less than 100,000 invoices that you're processing today. And then we can see probably about just over 50% of you are processing somewhere between 200,000 and 1 million invoices, and a small number, 8% of you processing over 1 million today. Great, thank you very much for that. Now I would like to hand over to Monty, who's going to tell us a little bit more about his story. Over to you, please, Monty.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. I wanted to thank you all for allowing me a few moments to tell my story here at B&H, my experiences and statements, which has always been one of the most challenging and difficult process pieces of the accounts payable department, how we work through it within B&H and how we hope to see it in the future. I wanted to jump right into the agenda items and just go through what we hope to discuss today within the moments that we have. First, I'd like to give a short B&H and department overview, what we do, how we process, what our size is, and so on, so we can have a gauge between our company and yours. Every company is different and run differently, so at least we know where we all stand. Some stats that I could throw at you, just so, again, to get a little bit better of an idea of how we all are going to be working through our different processes on our own. The roles within the organization, how we accomplish our daily tasks, and then really get into what I believe is really one of the most important features and overlooked features of accounts payable, which is the credits, which is an unknown revenue center, as we will point out a little bit later. The challenges to the credit collection, which usually comes based on the need for proper statement reconciliation, how we should try to collect it through typical means and the difficulties that we've had, and how statement matching has really entered into the storyline to assist us. Obviously, there were some primary benefits, some metrics that we could point to, and then some unknown and surprising perks that came from the statement matching solution. So I think that if we cover some of this, I think that would be excellent. And I'd like to begin with an overview of a little bit about B&H Photo, Video, Pro Audio that perhaps you may or may not have heard of. We are located in New York City, one of the greatest cities in the world. We are an electronics and photography superstore that was founded in 1973 and privately owned. We're located, if you can see on the little map there, we are located right near Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, and just a few blocks away from Times Square. So we're right in the middle of everything. That is our brick and mortar store, but most of our work is online and phone sales. Continuing with the overview, just a little with some statistics regarding the accounts payable organization. We currently have approximately 25 FTEs. We do have 5,000 vendors in our database system, with 3,500 doing active activity. We processed a little bit more than 500,000 invoices last year, 555,000 to be exact, and that is rising as with every given day, which comes to an average of about 46,000. You know, if we want to round up, approximately 50,000 invoices a month. We have two primary teams within my accounts payable department. One is the inventory team, which is the team responsible for all the paying the invoices for all the resale items in the store, and an expense department, which is smaller, which is just basically to pay for utilities, rent, etc. Some of your basic functions regarding expense, and so on. The inventory team, as I mentioned, is much larger. It's about 80 to 20% ratio when you break down those 25 FTEs. And then to get into some specifics regarding the inventory role of the B&H accounts payable department, obviously we have outside of our department, we have the procurement officers. It's a very large department, and they, like most companies, work to get on competitive pricing. They work to make sure that stock balancing is correct, sales, that the store will offer, sale pricing, etc. Obviously, anything they order with purchase orders will get sent to the warehouse. The warehouse will do the proper receiving of the merchandise. They will count. They will assess the condition, if it's something that we can resell, or if there's a problem with the merchandise, etc. Then it gets sent to our department, and our department obviously being the accounts payable department, specifically the inventory team. Once we have the appropriate purchase order and the warehousing information in the system, it's our responsibility to do a three-way match. There is no other way that we allow in our system to actually pay for the particular invoices. One of the roles that I believe is constantly overlooked, aside from paying the invoices, it's often viewed as, that's their job, just to pay the money, just to let the money go, is the unknown inventory role of collecting credits. Collecting credits is the most important, but there are some others as well, on the route to collecting credits. Firstly, is keeping the books and ledgers in order so you match properly with the vendors. If you match with the vendors, if you have the correct information, you have the same invoices, the same credits that the vendor has, and the same balance, your relationship obviously is going to be one that's appropriate, and the vendors do appreciate that. I will be mentioning that a few times because I find it to be also a pain point to make sure that we have these good relationships with the vendors. And then obviously, we have the right to earn certain credits, and we want to make sure we've managed the earned credits. I put down here some examples, that you may see. VPC, which is also known as co-op, for advertising, for other programs we run for vendors that are actually sponsored by the vendors, whether there's a shortage or a damage, or a buyer will send some merchandise back for stock balancing purposes, pricing errors, or customer returns. For all these items and several more, B&H, the accounts payable department, we issued a credit note that we feel we deserve, we feel that we're entitled to, and it becomes our role to actually collect that and to collect it timely. It's unfortunate that it's not considered or may not be seen as an inventory role, because in my eyes it's almost as important, if not more important, than actually paying the invoices. But this is a difficult role, and there are challenges to the credit collection and statement reconciliation. For example, vendors are less inclined to process, timely submit, or assist with the submission of credits and statements, as well as follow-up inquiries. As we all probably know, if you're missing an invoice or you want to pay a vendor some funds towards something, whatever the case may be, they're very much happy to help you and to oblige with your requests and to send you whatever information you may need to pay the invoice. They're happy to take the money from you, and they're happy to receive the check, ACH, credit card, whatever it may be. If you're asking them for information, for backup, for description regarding a credit, which is obviously going to take money out of their pockets, they all of a sudden get a little bit quiet, and they become busy, and so on and so forth. So it becomes, one of the general challenges is just, I can't really blame them, but the vendors don't want to, make this a priority, and that's well understood. Their job is to bring, as the accounts receivable department, to bring money in, and while they are not looking to be malicious or to avoid us, it's not going to be a top priority. There's also an issue of the manual review of the statements. We have statements, as many of you, depending on how the business is run, with so many different SKUs, and I believe B&H has close to 400,000 plus SKUs. There can be statements as long as 40 pages plus. Some vendors like to keep things clean, and in their mind that means splitting one very large PO into many hundreds of invoices, one invoice per item, one invoice per line, and that, while the automation system can handle that, it does create a very, very, very long statement and is a very daunting task to go through. The regular standard of that one may look to with a company as far as fixing this problem, which is to hire staff, is something that most companies don't want to do, just because you claim you have a function that's needed. One small function, they feel if the department is running, In general, the review of the statements does require a diverse level of skill. So it's hard to come out with, a process that you expect your entire team, which is diverse as far as age, as far as skill, and then as far as training, and to get them all to comply with one particular outside of the system reconciliation. Obviously, the invoice matching process is all within the particularly built system for us, our custom ERP system. But the statements as they were and the statement reconciliation, a few months ago was just, as best as you can. And with such diverse levels of skill, it becomes difficult. And adding to that, that even the best of the processors, when it comes to statement reconciliation, it is a slow and methodical process. The logging, they have to have a little ruler out there to, make sure the lines match up and so on and so forth, and then checking to make sure the dollar amounts, if they're off by just a couple of pennies, is that because of a rounding issue, or is this really an issue? It's a very slow, methodical process. And even if your best employees are doing this, and they are doing this on a regular basis, it's very hard to get any kind of progress reporting. If you want to know how many statements are being done in a particular period of time, which employees are doing the statements, how quickly they're doing the statements, it's really all going to be, ad hoc reports or anything that you may be able to build. And we needed a solution in order to fix that. I'm very happy that I met and we want to enter statementmatching.com, the solution into my conversation. I met Statement Matching or representatives from Statement Matching at a conference outside of the state, and I met them on a few occasions, and there were a few benefits for the company that popped out at me directly. There are others, but the first things that I saw was an easy and clear IT integration and quick implementation. Generally, even good ideas, ideas that would work and are very beneficial to the company, are sometimes, not really looked at if they feel that it's going to be too taxing on the IT department, and they don't want to, or it's going to take too long, and focus will be lost. If you could show them that it's clear IT integration, and it won't take even a long time to get done, they usually are much happier with that, and that was a major benefit. In addition, I was able to prove just through a simple demo that all the heavy lifting is being done by statement matching. As I mentioned earlier, all the rulers that were being used in the past, the logbooks that individuals were keeping, or any kind of other makeshift tool that either I as a manager or the individual users were using wasn't necessary anymore. Especially in today's day and age where there's always a concern as far as security, as far as hacking and so on and so forth. The IT department felt very, very comfortable in the way the data was exchanged between the two companies, which was always a red flag whenever discussing an outside piece of software, especially since with so many customers and so much customer information, making sure we don't expose ourselves to issues and so on and things like that. But the secure data exchange set up by statement matching was something that our company felt very strongly approved. And then, obviously, to me, the main function, but this closes a very clear gap. And once I was able to prove these other items ahead, management had really given me the approval very easily. That was helped by the other main benefit, which is that I found the system to be very economical. What I needed to get done and what this offered me was a very excellent economical situation, and I believe that this is what helped really push the decision to go forward with statement matching. Once the decision was made, and like I mentioned earlier, the integration was quite quick and quite painless. We saw some immediate results on a department level basis. Those included, some quick turnover of the data. There was, by the time the users would go ahead and upload their series of statements and go through their process, they could rely on the fact that work on a couple of the tasks, come back, there was a lot of information already there, and they could almost do their reconciliation within a very short period of time. The results from statement matching was there already for them. Both regarding vendors, vendors, like I mentioned earlier, are not keen on changing the process, but because statement matching does allow for several different documents, or they really cover all documents, the vendors did not find this to be a burden, and therefore they were happy to work with us. In my department, in my company, the only tools that we felt that were needed were Excel and an internet connection, which, regardless of the diversity within the department, I believe everybody is knowledgeable of Excel and does have an internet connection. So therefore, it was something that was very easily integrated into my department's needs and abilities. I did enjoy the multiple upload methods that statement matching does allow. As I mentioned earlier, the vendor does, could send how they've always sent it, snail mail, fax, email, or any other portal with which they want to send their statements. And then regarding my staff itself, it was whatever they were more comfortable with. Email, Excel upload to statement matching, as will be explained later, I believe, in the statement matching portion. Personally, I find that most of my employees feel that the statement matching website is very intuitive and very easy to use, with a lot of features, and it's fun. It's fun, and it takes you out of the mundane look of your screen, the different unique colors, and it's just something that is easy to use and integrate within your department. And for the first time, I saw a real great ability to. They have a very large and they have a vast availability of reports, and as we go on with our integration fully into the system, and as we go on for the next few months, we'll be able to bring management and all the way up to the CEO level of how we're doing as far as statements go. Even on the short term, the reporting is excellent. I believe this is the sales pitch to me that was made long ago, and it's held true all the way through integration. Is they are the best customer service in the business. We have several pieces of software that we use for outside functions, and if you need something that may not be on that particular company's agenda, you could beg and you could scream and you could cry. You probably won't get it regardless of the importance. In this case with statement matching, there was right off the top a couple of things that I may have mentioned just in passing would work better for my team and my company. And statement matching, they were on it right away. They understood it. They made sure they understood what I wanted, and within a short period of time that was built and that was done. And that was extremely helpful and something that I find to be very rare within the business. And then in the end, the real bottom line is that what I didn't have before, I now have, which was line-by-line statement matching and being done completely automatically, which was something that only a few years ago was a pipe dream for me. Just to show some basic metrics and results, so you can see how we've used it in the short term, that we've been using it heavily. On one particular statement, and on the left side I would have one statement, and on the right side I want to talk about a blitz for a moment. But regarding the one statement, we found 17 missing invoices. Now, aside from the fact that as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that your books do match, missing invoices helped me specifically in two major areas. One was sheet compliance. If an invoice had been lost, or for some reason it didn't come to the EDI portal or was lost in the mail, if we let that age, because for a reason it is, the vendor does not come after us for any particular amount of money. If we let this age, we start having sheet issues, and money has to be given. We have to go ahead and go into an active process of coming back to the company and then eventually to the government. And it's a very messy and sticky situation, so it was much easier that we didn't have to worry about that because statement matching was quickly and timely telling us what we were missing as far as invoices. And then discount. B&H is very driven on paying on time and paying early and receiving quick pay discounts. So if an invoice was not submitted or we didn't receive it, we were still able to capture it quickly through the statement matching system and still take advantage of the discount terms. On that same statement, we found 9 missing credits. Now, credits, as long as you find them, shouldn't be a problem, even though you want to take things quickly in general. In this specific case, a lot of these credits were related to co-op, as I mentioned earlier. And co-ops specifically, on many of their programs, do not allow you to take credits unless they're taken within a specific period of time. Had we not caught them when statement matching showed them to us, we would have probably lost all that or had a fight to try to get that money back. So this was credits that we worked hard to earn, and just because we were missing them, we would have lost the deadline. And that's where statement matching shines. We also actually noticed some ERP issues. We found that a couple of invoices within our ERP system were submitted, and the date was off. And for that prompted further research, and we really noticed that the dates were not coming in right. And we were able to find, we did a general, a basic, some research and discovery to see if it was just this vendor or others, and we were able to solve the problem and fix it quickly. Also, we, as many other companies, have EDI availability, and we saw that the companies were using maybe two systems: one, their homegrown ERP system, and then using a PO flip EDI system, which we had allowed at the time. And what we were finding was that when they were flipping a PO, if the buyer or purchaser would make a mistake and add money and so on, or something along those lines, the invoice would reflect that higher price, that higher cost, and that's something we don't want. So we again did some R&D to see if it's just this purchase order, if this is a problem that we have with this vendor or with many other vendors, and we brought this to upper management, who are right now considering whether or not we should even allow an EDI system that works through just flipping POs. And then to reference that blitz that I mentioned just a moment ago, a couple of weeks ago we decided to really test the might of the statement matching system, as well as what we can handle within our department. And what we found, the results that we had were approximately 600 statements were processed in 5 days. We found from the 600 statements, which included tens of thousands of lines in total, that 3% we found we were missing critical documents. Critical documents to me is either an invoice or a credit. Invoice for the reasons I mentioned, is sheet and discount terms, and credits because we want the credits. We don't want to miss any deadlines if there are any. 3% is not very good, and I admit that. I'd like to get that down to almost nothing, but I do write that off to our first time real reconciliation. This is the first time we allowed a system to really, beat up our statements and beat up our ERP information. And I guess for the first time, the 3% is acceptable, and we're working on fixing that. In addition, of all those missing items, there's a 25 to 75% split, 25% of them being credits and 75% of them being invoices. Because of how quick it went, we project the reconciliation frequency to be doubled. We used to consider with between the 3,500 vendors, we would want to do a quarterly review. Now we believe that we could do it twice in each quarter, and we feel that it's the whatever financial cost is taken upon ourselves that we have to incur because we're doing it double as often is very fair compared to what we're receiving out of it, by being able to have such good and up-to-date records. There's some additional perks that I put in quotes only because we didn't know, we were hoping, but we didn't know that we would receive this. And that was an immediate improvement in vendor relationships. I've already mentioned it a few times, that we've seen some, the vendors, they see our use of statement matching because sometimes we, as I think will be shown later, you could email straight from statement matching, or you could really download it to Excel and manipulate it any other way. But what they saw was that we were inquiring not just about credits, but about invoices as well. And they didn't view it as so much anymore as just a credit grab where all we want is credits, send us credits. They saw it as a partnership. They appreciated that we the expenditure and the difficulty that we went through, the time we took to bring on statement matching, and then they viewed it as a partnership and just making sure our records match. As a result, the relationship went up, and we see improvements with with their compliance with credits. In addition to their compliance, the employees have been very compliant with the statement reconciliation rules and deadlines. Now that we have a system, now that we have a process, we could watch and make sure that the employees are compliant, that the following steps 1 through 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be, if you have more, if you have less, however you want to split it up. And in addition, if we set deadlines in place, we have tools to make sure that that are built into the statement matching solution that could tell us if they've hit the deadline or not. Again, things that we've never had before, reports we've never had before. I've also noticed, and these were interesting, but a large boost in morale amongst the employees who they wanted some additional stimulation. If they're used to working on the same color screens, doing the same mundane invoice matching on a daily basis. For them to then go out to a web-based tool that works quickly, that gives them new results, that gives them the option of emailing different ways. They saw it as a way to learn, as a way to help the company, and there was a boost in morale, which in today's day and age is extremely important. You can't put a price tag on the morale of your employees. And then what I've seen since then as well is a more proactive involvement by all the employees in suggesting ideas and projects to enhance the AP department. For example, they've all seen the statement matching solution. They all see it to be an excellent solution that will help, that has helped and will continue to help the company, and they want to know who thought of it and where it came from. They therefore want to be it wants to bring up the next find, the next golden treasure, whatever it may be, whatever pain points you have in your particular AP department. What I'm finding in my department is that users are going out there and they're doing their own research and bringing you good ideas, different solutions that are out there for different problems, for different issues, and they seem to be very proactive and much more excited about helping the department overall. What that allows my statement reconciliation to look like today versus what it was just several months ago before the year turned to 2016 was that manual reconciliation is no longer a function within AP. The days of all the manual work and with the rulers with the different color pens and pencils and highlighters are no longer happening. Paper statements, their associated costs of printing them and so on and so forth, and the general clutter that I would see on a desk just full of statements is no longer an obstacle. The department looks a lot more professional. The department functions a lot more professionally, and that's something that's certainly improved over what it was in the past. During the recent blitz that I mentioned in a few slides earlier, we successfully processed almost 600 statements in one work week, and I could say that over and over and over again because the idea of just doing a couple of statements, and a couple really means I would say less than 10 a week, to do them and do them well was something that we were really never able to do. And to think that we could do 600 statements on a weekly basis, and I didn't get an email from Statement Matching saying, hey, slow it down, it's too much, we can't handle it. They handled it very well. This was a gift that they had given to us by allowing us to process so many, and I believe they could have done even more had we gotten more. The exceptions that Statement Matching gave us, meaning as we'll see in the tool, it shows you the different exceptions. Were immediately sent to the vendor for joint reconciliation, which was very, very helpful. We didn't have to break it up and say these are the credits, these are the invoices, separate emails. We were able to do everything within one nicely presented and nicely formatted page or email. I have found vendors, as I mentioned before, to be more compliant and helpful because they've seen that we've invested in the tool and they've appreciated the work that we've done. Lastly, we within B&H have changed some practices and how we process our invoices and how we process our statement reconciliation, in order to avoid any unneeded frustration in the future. Once we saw the size of the volume of invoices that had to be cheated, or that we had to look at to possibly be cheated, we decided this is something we can't just. We are happy that Statement Matching was reliable, but we can't. It was important enough that we wanted to bring it to the forefront. So we've created our own internal reports that gives us this information on a daily basis for the employees to review. I wanted to thank you again, and I'd like to introduce Daniel Kimpton of StatementMatching.com, who will be able to tell you a little bit more about the solution itself.
Thank you, Monty. So what I wanted to do on my presentation is just really give you a quick overview of the system. So I'll explain how it works, and then I'm going to show you a few of the screens from a user's perspective. So it's a cloud-based application, and effectively our system reflects our customers' accounts payable ledgers up to the previous day. So every day I get a new file from all of my customers' accounts payable ledgers, and then my system gets updated, and all of the reports get updated, and so do all of the statements. The way we get statements into the system, like Monty said, we can accept paper, PDF, and Excel statements. Excel statements are the easiest because you can actually import them yourselves. It's very simple. The system just wants to know which columns on the spreadsheet go into which fields on the system. So it wants to know, where's the invoice number, the date, the amount, currency, that kind of thing. So Excel, part of the training, when we do the setup is we show you how to import them. And then the paper and PDF ones, they're slightly different because we process them onto the system for you as part of our managed service. So for paper statements, you can scan them to an email address. So in Monty's case, bnhphoto@statementmatching.com. And then as part of the service, we'll extract the data from the scanned image, and then it will be on the system, reconciled, ready for you to look at the next day. And it's a similar process with PDF invoices, PDF statements. So they'll obviously be email attachments. And again, you just forward them onto the email account that we provide, and then they'll be on the system reconciled, ready for you to review the next day. And every time that we get data from your ERP system, so every time we get this daily file, it actually updates all of the reconciliations, which is a big improvement, even if you're doing VLOOKUP and things on spreadsheets. As soon as you've done it, it's out of date, and if you want to run it again the next day, you've got to go through the whole process again. But with this system, it just keeps re-reconciling things in the background as we get new data. Now, when you log in as a user, you just access it via your browser. So the screen that you're looking at on here is the landing page. So this is a dashboard. Now, I've got some key reports on here, and I've got a slide which shows the full list of reports in a few slides' time. So I'll go into the specific reports then. But what I wanted to explain to start with is actually the statuses. So you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, a statement can be at different statuses. So just magnified in, at the top, this is the overall status for the statement. So when it does the reconciliation, it will allocate a status. So the first one that you can see is fully matched. So that means everything on the statement is on your system and there are no errors. So, we're happy with those. There's no exceptions effectively. And then going below, I've got fully matched with data mismatches. So that means everything on the statement is found, but there are some differences in the data. So on the bottom half of the screenshot where it says statement lines, you can see I've got some examples where the amount is incorrect. Now, if the amount's incorrect, it's either an underpayment or a potential overpayment waiting to happen. So that, they're important to go and look at. And then you can see I've also got dates are incorrect, invoice numbers are incorrect, which are, not necessarily monetary, but this is where duplicates can step in, because obviously most ERP systems, to flag a duplicate, it expects all of the data to be the same. But of course, mistakes happen. You can enter a date or particularly an invoice number incorrectly. You might miss off some leading characters or something like that. So this is going to highlight it at the point where you review the statement. So this is, potential duplicates that you can catch. And it also highlights things like invoices and credits the wrong way around, which pretty much happens on every time we do a proof of concept with customers. Even in the proof of concept stage, when they're putting some statements in, they'll often identify that, well, I've got a credit note on the statement, and actually someone's put it on their ERP system as an invoice. So it's a double hit. So that's fully matched with data mismatches. Now, the two that customers tend to go to first are the bottom two. So unpaid items missing on statement. That means that you've got an invoice or a credit on the statement that you don't have in your ERP system. So missing invoices, missing credits. And also it highlights where you have documents that are on your system. So you've got an invoice on your system which is not paid. But it's not showing on the supplier statement, even though it predates the statement. So if it's open on your accounts payable ledger, but the supplier's not chasing you for it, and it's dated prior to the statement, that could be a misposting. But it's important to go and look at them. So they're the statuses, and as a user, you can then go and narrow down your search. So a lot of my customers, when they organise the work in accounts payable, you might have people that are responsible for certain countries, so that would be certain company codes, for example, or business units, or you might be responsible for certain suppliers. So you might deal with, suppliers by invoice value, or you might deal with your critical suppliers, or you might just do them on an alpha split. But you can basically put selections in so that when you save your search, it only gives you the statements that you're responsible for. Where you can see some tick boxes on there as well. So you'll notice that you can also select statements at different statuses. So like I touched on before, often you'll want to prioritize which ones you look at because some errors are bigger than other ones. So a lot of customers would go and look at the incomplete matching ones first because that's where they're going to find all of their missing credits. So if I hit search, it's basically going to give me a list of statements. And I'm going to show you from the list, I'm going to show you an example of incomplete matching. Now on this screen here, this is just a list of statements and you can see the status. And the screenshot is too big on here. But over to the right hand side, there's actually another column called statement total. So what a lot of customers do is they'll sort their list by statement value. So they'll go and look at the biggest statement first. But from this screen, it would then take you to the detailed reconciliation screen, where it's going to show me a missing credit. So this is what the reconciliation looks like. So it's really simple. You can see that I've got the statement data on the left-hand side, and I've got the ERP data on the right-hand side. So in this example, I can see that there's 6 documents that are matched, which is good, but the first line is missing, and it's a credit note. So what you can do from the system is actually email the vendor, and there's a couple of different options to email the vendor. Now, in this example, I'm going to show you what the PDF report looks like, and I'll show you what the actual output looks like when you email it to the supplier. So this is what the vendor would see. So this would be, you'd have your logo in the top left-hand corner, obviously your details in the kind of header section in the right. But for the supplier, like Monty said earlier, this is not just about doing a credit grab. You can see the first line, which is missing, the credit note. It inserts some text to say, you need a copy. So, but the other documents, the ones that are matched, because I know the status of the documents, I can actually display that on here. So you can see I've got some that are posted, which if any of you use SAP, if it's posted and it's that basically means it's available to pay. So you can see that I can display a due date. And the one second from bottom is paid. So you can see that I've got a payment reference or a check number. So for the supplier on the accounts receivable side, this really gives them all of the information that they could want, that they would typically ring you up for. So it's good for vendor relationships, and it means you get fewer calls. Now, I'm not going to cover it in the presentation today because we've got limited time, but the other option, in our current release of the software, we've actually got a supplier portal where you can give suppliers access to this data via the web. So you can basically invite a supplier, they can log in, and they basically get a view of this data under their My Invoices tab. So they can see exactly what you're seeing on the screen here, but just in a kind of web view. And suppliers can also submit messages, so say if something's posted blocked and it's overdue, they might submit a message, and then that appears in statement matching against the document and also in basically an inbox. The other nice thing about the portal as well, I should have touched on this at the beginning, is that you can also let suppliers upload their own statements. So you can put the onus on the supplier to do it. And from the supplier's perspective, there's a big benefit, because if they go and reconcile their statement, they can do it when they want at their convenience, and they're very interested in making sure that you've got all of their invoices so that they're paid late. So you can actually put the onus on your suppliers to do it. Now, if I go back to the reconciliation screen, one of the other things that we encourage when we do the training is that you can actually add notes in the system. And the benefit of adding notes, so this one here, I put an action on the vendor to add a note. I put an action on the vendor to basically send a missing credit. And if you put notes in the system, let's say next month I get a statement from this supplier and this document is still on the statement, I'd be able to look at the notes and think, okay, well, I've already requested this from the vendor, what are they doing, kind of thing. So you can add notes at a line level, and then they kind of live with the system. So that's just a really quick example of something where, like incomplete matching. And what I wanted to touch on as well is the reporting. Now, I showed you how you can basically go and search for your statements using the search screen. But what a lot of customers want to do, and that's where these reports come from, every report on this list has come from a customer request. And we actively encourage customers to, it's not just about login support calls on our help desk. We like customers to tell us, wouldn't it be good if, basically development type ideas. And that's where all of these reports have come from. So the ones on the left, you'll notice that I can basically list all of the statements where I have missing credits. So I just want to go and look at all statements where there's missing credits. I can look at, show me all the statements with missing invoices, and I can basically select statements, based on the status. There's also some metrics reports in there, like, how many statements have I reconciled this month? What was the value? And then, and there's also some other status type reports that you can basically do for your top vendors. So on the right-hand side, where it says supplier reports, a lot of my customers in shared service centers, they have a target to do, let's say the top 20 in each country by invoice value, or they might do the top 100 globally. Whatever their kind of rules are in the shared service center, you can set that in the system to basically make sure that you reconcile your top suppliers by value. And then we've got another supplier-based report, which I thought I'd mention as well, which is the critical supplier. So this isn't based on value. It's actually based on, you just mark them up in the system as critical. So some examples from other customers are, if you've got 200 suppliers on your early payment program, you're going to want to make sure that you reconcile all of those to make sure that you get as many invoices available to pay early as possible. So it might be your early payment vendors. Or you might have other vendors on short payment terms, or just, very vocal, they put you on stop quick. It's up to you. You can just mark them up as critical. And this is not all of the reports either. It's just a snapshot. So that's just a really quick overview of the system. And the bit that I wanted to finish on is we actually offer customers a free proof of concept to use statement matching. So we can have this turned, once we've got the data from you, we can have this turned around in, we say 3 to 5 days. It takes a couple of hours to set up a new customer. We do the setup and training free of charge, and then the 4-week trial starts on the day that we give you the training. And we like to have like a weekly call with people just to, make sure that you're getting on okay, and, do training for, wider group of users. And as far as the data is concerned, you will already have access, for those of you who work in accounts payable, you'll have a way of listing invoices, already for a given vendor. So if you use SAP, FBL1N, or the Invoice Workbench in Oracle, or whatever system you use, if you're doing statement reconciliation, you'll have a method of basically getting the data that we need, i.e. you don't have to involve IT, because that generally takes a lot longer. So yeah, we'd encourage you to have a go, because it's always nice to look at a system with your own data in to actually see for yourself that it works. So that's enough for me on the system. And if anyone's got any questions, obviously we'll be doing Q&A, and I'm going to hand over to Susie West to do that.
That's great. Many thanks indeed, Dan. So we've got a number of questions that have come through. However, if you haven't already posted your question, please do so. We've got a good 10 minutes for Q&A. So a question for you, Monty. Obviously, we've been given an indication of some timing here for kind of a proof of concept from Dan. Monty, what was the timing around your project implementation?
From the time, and that is an excellent question, it's one of the ones I get asked most frequently, but from the time that we got the okay from upper management to go through with it, there was a project manager that from the IT department that was in touch every single day, or several times a day, with the statement matching. And I would say that there were a couple of tests, some tests of transfer of information, but I don't believe it took more than a week until we were actually live data testing. It took us, I would say, maybe another week until we felt comfortable that we were sending the data properly. I do recall that on one of our first runs, we recognized that we were sending the information completely backward. It just needed a flag switch, but it took actually a very short time. I would say from the time that we got the approval, not more than 2 weeks to work on all the different details.
So really swift. And Dan was talking about this not necessarily being too much of an IT project. Who was the person that owned the project at your end, Monty?
I was officially the project owner, but anything that in, at least within B&H, anything that requires the sending of the data from tables requires you to be in touch with the IT department. Whether or not I knew how to do it wasn't relevant. That's just a rule they have within the company that data has to be sent and checked through the security teams, and that's all the IT department. It wasn't difficult. They actually laughed, when I mentioned I want to bring on a big project, and it was actually quite small for them. But just for technical bureaucratic rules, or maybe even just for some safety, I was asked to obviously include the IT department.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like they didn't really have to kind of invest man days into the project as such. So it doesn't sound like you kind of came up against that whole kind of prioritization conversation. Is that right? You kind of were saved from that conversation?
Mm-hmm. Correct. I mean, from a, I'm not, again, I don't work in IT, but I know that they split up into, very limited tasks. One was just getting the information to create the reports that had to be sent out to statement matching, testing the portal with which we'd be sending it over, the format with which we'd be sending it over, and just some trial and error to make sure that we got it right. So it was really just those 3 steps, building it, sending it through safely, and just confirming that it was correct. So it really was, there was nothing to pirate, and they just, did it very quickly, and it worked very, very well.
Great. A question, I'll start with you and then I'll move on to Dan. So what about the branding, so branding the communication from statement matching as BH Photo? Were there any questions from vendors about why statement matching was involved? Was there any kind of confusion over kind of the statementmatching.com role in this, or how did all of that work for you?
Well, that is an excellent question because, when I was first, long before I even brought it to management, and I had seen I'd seen a few trials on this. That was a concern of mine. And that's a concern in general whenever you try to bring an outside company to help you with a service. Originally, my concern was that they wouldn't be trusting of it. They wouldn't be too excited to work with them. There is enough information you can see on the different emails that come straight from statement matching that will give you, and I know that I would feel comfortable when I received an email. 2 things that came out of that. One, for the positive. One was that vendors, once they got that level of comfort, which some of them did make a phone call, I'll be honest, some of them did make a phone call or sent an email saying, is this a new system that you've purchased? Is this some kind of partner in this system? And we simply explained what it was all about. So that helped lead to a level of trust and an appreciation of what we had gone out to do. We didn't ask them, vendors, whether they wanted it or not, but they saw the proactivity in bringing on statement matching. They were able to get past seeing a statement matching logo or a statement matching a piece of correspondence from statement matching. They still were able to see their user, so a lot of them weren't concerned. So I actually saw what was a concern turn actually into a positive as far as the branding went. There was always the listing of the name of the user on the email, and they saw what we had put in as far as making the investment. And then the truth is that for any vendor that we thought maybe a little bit old school and just concerned about safety in general, statement matching offers a variety of ways to take the information and download it into our own system via Excel, PDF, or whatever the case may have been, and then actually just put it into our own emails. In that case, there was certainly no concern whatsoever from and again, we had very little, if any, issues regarding this problem or this
great
concern.
Okay, so Daniel, anything that you want to add to that as far as the response is concerned?
Yeah, just 2 things very quickly. Just on the branding question, when I showed the example of the PDF that that you can send to the vendor. Now, customers can have their logo in the top left of that PDF, so you can just upload a logo, and then it would be your logo on there. And the email address that the statements come from, even if you email it from the system, is the email address of the user that is logged in. So most people use a group inbox, AP invoices at customername.com. So the email address is, it looks like it's come from, from the AP department, and it's, it's branded with the customer's logo. So I was just going to add that one on branding. And just on the IT involvement, I just wanted to set expectations on there as well, because for the POC, we use the access that AP have got in order for AP to prove the benefits so that they can then go to IT with a real project rather than asking them for, resource to basically support a free trial. And it's important because you mentioned prioritization. If you go to IT saying, oh, can you give me some data for a trial, you're basically at the bottom of the queue. But what we don't want customers doing is doing, manual uploading of data on a long-term basis. So what happens with customers, for real, if you go ahead at the end of the trial, is they have a report written by IT, but there are some standard ones which we also provide that basically output the data overnight, and it basically sends the data automatically. So finance do not touch anything as far as data is concerned. It all happens in the background, but that does involve IT, but just not for the proof of concept. But eventually, everyone has to get in the queue for IT. You know, nobody on here can just do that themselves. So no, and that was
okay,
it.
that's good. Good to have clarity on that one. So I'll put this to you, Dan, and Monty, you might have kind of something to add here as well. This particular viewer is saying that they bring to their supplier statement reconciliations the GRN balances as well. Is there option is there the option of doing so in order to gain the additional business stroke control benefits from the supplier statements?
Yeah, I've got customers that do that. So I've got customers where they'll reconcile a statement, and let's say, for example, everything on the statement is matched, so you have all of the documents. And if you've got nothing on the supplier's ledger that's dated before the statement, they'll say, well, actually, I can really clear any unused goods receipts that are dated prior to the statement. So people do use the statement reconciliation process to then drive, basically the goods, goods received, not invoiced, and you can clear them. Now, for SAP customers, we do have a process where you can automate the GRIR clearing. So it will basically create a clearing document for each goods receipt that you want to clear. So we also provide that link there. So it's kind of a depends how far you want to take it. But yes, customers do that.
Okay, good. And Monty, anything that you want to add to that particular response?
I think Daniel answered it very well. We actually don't take it that far. We use statement matching specifically for, one-off, obviously for every line of the statement. But when it comes to, reconciling, long-term balances and so on and so forth, that's something that we do independently, because the way our debit memos work versus credit memos, and we do it with a lot of international, there's times where we're off just small dollar amounts, and just showing a balance that may be off by not much may panic a vendor. So we want to get the matching done, so we know we have all the documentation, we have all the invoices, and we have all the credits. And then if there's an additional request to work with them and to clear the balance completely, that's something that we would deal with independently. We would probably use a lot of the tools and a lot of the information that we've found on statement matching, but we don't do it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Monty, in your opinion, what's the one critical success factor to making sure that this project, it sounds like it's been a real success for you, so congratulations. What would you say is the one thing that's a standout must do to get a program like this absolutely right for you?
What is, I'm sorry,
what's the one critical? Sure. What's the one critical success factor for you? I'm sure there are a few, but what's the kind of the one thing that stands out for you that really made a difference to this project for you?
Oh, okay. So I think the most critical thing was that beforehand statement reconciliation, and if the CFO would ask me, do our books match the vendors, I would embarrassingly have to just shrug my shoulders and say, maybe some of them, perhaps, I don't know. There's too many vendors, too many statements, too many invoices. I just, and without any programs. And now I could say, yes, we do have a handle on it, and I could show them statistics, and it's very simple. That was,
okay,
what I wanted to get.
Okay, good. So, and it sounds like the technology is a perfect fit for you. So, so great news. Look, we are at the end of our webinar. So I would like to say many thanks to Monty Kamenetsky and for sharing your story, Monty, and Dan Kimpton as well. If you would like to follow up with Dan and find out more about this proof of concept arrangement that he was talking about, please do email him. His email address is available on your screen now, and do take him up on that wonderful offer. Also, just to draw your attention to a number of webinars that we've got coming up over the next couple of months, some very exciting case studies to be sharing with you, and other great discussions taking place on various webinars, and an online masterclass that we've got taking place in June as well. And also do join us at the Purchase to Pay Leaders Summit that's taking place in June. If you are a global process owner or you're looking to become a global process owner, join us for our GPO Summit taking place in September. In both of those events taking place in London. Thank you very much for your time and attention. We look forward to welcoming you next time. Thank you and goodbye.